The pod slammed into the jagged rocks of Varela 9 with a shudder that rattled every bone in John Mercer's body. Pain shot through his shoulder, and a spray of sparks and molten metal hissed from the pod's fractured hull, but he forced himself upright. The sulfur-scented wind cut through his suit's filtration layers, and he tasted acrid smoke and something metallic on his tongue. Around him, the world was alive in its violence, a vast expanse of jagged cliffs, poison rivers that steamed under a green-tinted sky, and clouds roiling with electric fury. He stepped onto the planet's surface, boots hissing as acidic droplets steamed against the reinforced soles. His lungs strained under the mask, calibrated for minimal air intake, and every inhale felt like drawing in liquid fire. He could hear the planet breathe, deep groans of shifting stone, distant crashes of landslides, and the eerie hiss of toxic winds slicing through the canyons. John Mercer wasn't a stranger to hostile environments. He'd survived Arctic blizzards where snow blinded and frostbite crept through gloves, deserts that baked the skin and made water a relic, chemical zones where every breath was a gamble. But Varela 9 was something else entirely. It wasn't just hostile, it was sentient in its cruelty, a planet engineered to punish curiosity and erase existence. And yet, he moved forward, instinct sharper than fear. His first hours were a brutal trial. Acid rain fell in sheets, eating through the pod's outer panels, turning sharp fragments into improvised shields. He scavenged what he could, shards of obsidian scattered across the plains, twisted vines with fibrous stalks that sizzled when touched, and the skeletal remains of creatures larger than any bear or wolf he'd ever known. Every step was measured, every contact with the environment was a test. A shadow passed over him. John froze, scanning with trained eyes. Six-legged predators skittered across the jagged rocks, carapaces glinting like molten metal. They were enormous, fast, and silent hunters. But they didn't charge. They watched. And he watched them in return. Survival wasn't just about brute force here, it was about respect, caution, and cunning. He shifted behind a jagged ridge, letting the creatures pass, letting the planet's first lesson sink in. On Varela 9, patience was a weapon. Night arrived like a living nightmare. The sky turned from sickly green to deep emerald, flashes of plasma cutting through clouds that dripped acidic rain. John ignited a small, controlled fire with salvaged materials. The flame hissed and roared as droplets sizzled into steam, casting dancing shadows across the jagged terrain. He moved with efficiency, erecting a makeshift shelter against a cliff's jagged overhang. Rocks were stacked and wedged, vines twisted into crude lashings. It was barely enough, but it was enough to buy him the hours of sleep he desperately needed. And sleep came fitfully. Every sound, the groaning of rock, the distant crash of a landslide, the scuttling of alien predators, pulled him from unconsciousness. Dreams of Earth haunted him, his sister Hannah's laughter, his father's stern instructions, the feel of soil beneath bare feet. Those memories weren't just comfort, they were survival. They reminded him what it meant to endure, what it meant to fight not just for life, but for continuity. By the third day, John's focus shifted from mere survival to adaptation. He experimented cautiously with the local flora, testing fibrous stalks and crystalline fungi for toxicity. Some burned his mouth with venomous acids, others were neutral or slightly edible once treated. He fashioned rudimentary filtration devices using shards of metal and twisting plant fibers, capturing condensation from acidic clouds, neutralizing it with makeshift chemical treatments he synthesized on the spot. Each small success built confidence, each failure taught humility. The aliens in orbit, Ark and their team, watched every movement with a mixture of horror and fascination. It manipulates the environment, Ark said, antennae twitching over their console. It is not merely surviving. It is building. John had scavenged more than raw materials. He had found fragments of his crashed ship, twisted panels and wiring that he carefully salvaged. Using these, he began forming the skeletal frame of what would become his first real shelter, a combination of natural rock and engineered reinforcement. He hollowed out a section of cliff, reinforcing it with angular metal supports. Fibrous plant material was woven into the walls, both as insulation and as a primitive air filter. The planet fought back relentlessly. Acid clouds corroded the metal faster than he could shield it, and each night predators tested his defenses, probing for weaknesses. Yet John persisted. He dug trenches to redirect runoff, reinforced walls with layers of obsidian and scrap, and rigged tension cables to brace against the frequent tremors. Every action was precise, each movement calculated with the discipline of a soldier and the patience of a sculptor. By the end of the first week, his shelter had transformed from a crude cave into a functional, airtight chamber. The interior was dimly lit by salvaged energy cells, filtered air circulating quietly, and a small area set aside for food preparation and rest. Outside, the sulfur plains stretched endlessly, lethal yet mesmerizing in their alien beauty. John stood at the entrance of his new home, chest heaving under his suit, eyes scanning the horizon. The wind hissed and whipped, but for the first time, he felt not just alive, but capable. He named the shelter Haven, a faint echo of earthly comfort amidst alien chaos. Here, he would observe, adapt, and plan. Here, he would wrest life from a planet that had never intended to give it. In orbit, the alien scientists were still stunned. THR's sensors captured intricate patterns of survival, intelligence, and adaptation that no simulation could predict. "It is impossible," THR whispered, almost reverently. "No life form should endure this. Yet it thrives. It manipulates the world itself." John Mercer didn't know he was being observed. He didn't care. To him, there was only the wind, the rocks, the acid rains, and the relentless drive to survive. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark, an almost primal connection to this death world, as if it had accepted him not as prey, but as a worthy adversary. As the first full moon of Varela 9 rose, a sickly green disk burning behind clouds of ash and lightning, John stood at the cliff edge, surveying the toxic horizon. He knew the planet would continue to test him. Landslides, predators, acid storms, they were only the beginning. Yet he also knew something else: no matter the cruelty of the world, no matter the odds, he would endure. Because survival wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. On this planet, survival was a testament. And John Mercer intended to write his story in every stone, every reinforced wall, and every heartbeat that persisted against the impossible. The days on Varela 9 blurred together, each one a fresh challenge, a new gauntlet from a planet that seemed alive in its fury. John Mercer had survived the first week by sheer instinct and discipline, but now he realized that survival alone was no longer enough. To endure, he had to dominate the immediate environment, bend it to his purpose without provoking it to strike him down entirely. His shelter, Haven, had become his lifeline, a fragile, yet stubborn testament to human ingenuity, but even its walls shivered under the weight of the planet's ceaseless assaults. The morning began with a violent tremor. A landslide roared down the cliffs above Haven, sending jagged rocks plummeting into the sulfuric runoff below. John sprang into action without hesitation. He dove into the cave, yanking at tension supports, bracing walls, and redirecting runoff with hastily dug channels. Sparks hissed where exposed wiring met the acidic spray, and clouds of dust mixed with vapor burned his eyes, but he refused to yield. Each action was precise, every movement choreographed from years of survival drills, training, and instinct. When the chaos subsided, he stood in the dim glow of his shelter, chest heaving, gloves shredded. Haven had held, just barely, but he knew this was only the beginning. If he wanted to last, he had to think bigger, faster, smarter. He scavenged the surrounding area for anything that could be repurposed. Twisted remnants of alien drones, shattered probes, and even the skeletal remains of massive virulent predators became raw materials. Metal was reforged into rudimentary scaffolding, fibrous plants woven into insulation, and fragments of glass-like crystal fused into panels that could reflect the harsh radiation. Every item was repurposed, transformed into something functional. Where others would have seen ruin, John saw opportunity. His first task was reinforcement. Haven had survived its initial trials, but the planet tested persistence more than singular events. Lightning storms struck the cliffs in rhythmic fury, acid clouds corroded walls, and tremors threatened structural integrity with alarming regularity. John erected tensioned braces and crossbeams, tying them into both natural rock formations and the metallic fragments he had salvaged. He filled gaps with hardened mineral slurry, created improvised insulation layers, and even installed rudimentary blast shutters to cover the entrances during storms. But structural fortification was only the beginning. John understood the planet as an ecosystem, hostile yet strangely logical. predators stalked predictable paths, acidic runoff flowed in recurring patterns, mineral deposits could be mined, refined, and redirected. He began cataloging everything, not with the meticulous detachment of a scientist, but with the pragmatic eye of a survivalist. Each observation became actionable knowledge: where to place traps, how to reinforce walls, which plants could supplement his diet. One evening, a massive storm rolled across the plains. Acid rain beat down like needles, winds whipped into a frenzy, and plasma bolts split the sky in jagged arcs. John secured Haven's shutters, activated the filtration system, and checked his improvised lightning rods. Outside, the world was chaos incarnate, but inside, he worked methodically. The storm wasn't an enemy, it was a problem to solve, a puzzle to master. When lightning struck nearby, he measured the energy flow, adjusted grounding rods, and noted the storm's frequency: all for tomorrow, all for survival. In orbit, the aliens were losing composure. HFY's compound eyes recorded every movement, their neural processors straining to comprehend the human's method. It is manipulating its environment with intentionality, the xenobiologist said. It is not merely reactive, it is anticipatory. This organism is extraordinary. John didn't know he was observed. He didn't care. His world was tactile, immediate, and unforgiving. He adapted his shelter into a semi-permanent base of operations, a reinforced core chamber for rest, a workshop for tools and repairs, a greenhouse for experimental food cultivation. Using fibrous stalks and hardy virulent plants, he developed basic crops, conditioning the soil with chemical treatments derived from the planet's minerals. He even began to trap smaller predators, using them as both a protein source and a study in survival strategy. Each success was hard-won. Acid storms leached nutrients from the soil, predators destroyed early crops, and structural reinforcements constantly required maintenance. Yet John persisted, improvising solutions with ingenuity born from desperation and experience. He constructed modular extensions from scavenged debris, connected with tensioned ropes and mineral anchors. Every addition served a dual purpose: utility and protection. Haven was no longer just a shelter, it was an evolving machine, a human fortress in the heart of a planet that sought to destroy him. One night, as he worked by lantern light, he heard the soft skitter of predators outside. Six-legged hunters, enormous and silent, circled the perimeter. He watched through reinforced glass panels, studying their behavior. Unlike before, they didn't attack outright. They observed, almost curiously, and he observed them in return. He realized that survival on Varela 9 wasn't just a contest of strength, it was a dialogue with a world that tested, challenged, and respected cunning. John paused to reflect. He remembered Earth, the warmth of his sister's laughter, his father's quiet lessons on persistence, the meticulous care of his military training. Those memories were more than nostalgia, they were the blueprint of his endurance. Every decision, every improvisation, every construction was infused with purpose. Haven was more than survival, it was humanity's defiance made tangible. By the second month, John's mastery of the immediate environment became apparent. He had created channels to divert acidic runoff away from key structures, reinforced high-risk areas with mineral composites, and constructed traps to deter predators. His greenhouse yielded small but sustainable crops. He had even begun experimenting with resource recycling, burning mineral fragments to create rudimentary energy sources, filtering air through layered plant fibers and metallic meshes, and harnessing residual geothermal heat to maintain core warmth during storms. And the aliens continued to observe. HFY and their crew grew frantic, scanning data streams, recalculating survival probabilities, and replaying simulations that failed every time. It is performing beyond theoretical limits, HFY admitted, antennae quivering. It learns faster than the environment can react. This is not evolution. This is strategy. John never considered the odds. He didn't speculate about extraterrestrial observation or the improbable nature of his survival. He simply acted. When storms threatened, he reinforced. When predators approached, he adapted. When resources dwindled, he improvised. His movements became almost ritualistic, a choreography of survival honed by necessity and experience. Toward the end of the second month, Haven had transformed from a fragile cave into a semi-permanent fortress. Walls were reinforced with layered mineral composites and scavenged metal. Air filtration systems hummed with quiet efficiency, and energy cells powered rudimentary lighting and heat. His greenhouse, though modest, produced enough food to supplement his rations, and his traps provided occasional protein. Varela 9 remained a threat, yet he had carved out a domain where he could survive, thrive, and plan. Standing atop the cliff outside Haven, John surveyed the toxic horizon. The green-tinged sky churned with storms, and distant mountains erupted with acidic steam. Yet there, in the center of this death world, a human stood unbowed. He had adapted, learned, and built. He had made the impossible possible. In orbit, the alien xenobiologists recorded, puzzled, awestruck. "It is not merely surviving," Ark said softly, antennae trembling. "It is dominating. It is mastering the environment." John Mercer did not know he was being watched. He did not know he had rewritten the rules of what it meant to survive on a death world. For him, there was only the next day, the next storm, the next obstacle. And in that relentless pursuit, he found not fear, but purpose, a singular, unyielding drive to endure against every conceivable impossibility. Varela 9 had tested him, assaulted him, and tried to consume him. Yet he had built something indestructible, not just a shelter, but a symbol of human will, ingenuity, and defiance. Haven was more than a shelter, it was a statement: survival was not enough. On this planet, mastery was the only path forward. And John Mercer, Deathworlder by necessity, had begun to master it. The horizon of Varela 9 was a restless swirl of green clouds and jagged peaks, a world alive with peril, yet somehow familiar to John Mercer now. 3 months had passed since his crash, and the planet's constant assaults had forged him into something sharper, more attuned to the rhythm of death and survival. Haven, once a fragile cave, now sprawled like a fortress across the cliffs, a network of reinforced walls, energy conduits, and makeshift greenhouses that defied the planet's cruelty. But survival was no longer enough. John knew that if he truly wanted to endure, he had to expand, explore, and assert dominion over the chaos. With a pack slung across his back and tools in hand, he set out into the sulfur plains beyond Haven. The ground hissed beneath his boots, acidic runoff steamed from cracked earth, and the faint outlines of predators flitted in the distance. Each step was measured, calculated. He moved not as prey, but as a hunter, a strategist, a master of his microcosm in this alien death world. The first challenge came in the form of a molten river, its surface bubbling with acidic heat, releasing poisonous fumes in staccato bursts. John surveyed it carefully, noting the patterns of geysers and weak crusts along the edges. Using salvaged metal beams and fibrous plant fibers, he constructed a temporary bridge, tense, flexible, yet sturdy enough to support his weight. Crossing it, he felt a rare thrill, the exhilaration of manipulating the environment rather than merely reacting to it. Further on, he encountered creatures more formidable than anything he had faced near Haven. Six-legged predators with reflective carapaces and serrated appendages stalked him silently, their predatory instincts honed by the planet itself. But John had learned patience and observation. He diverted their attention with noise traps, lured them toward safe distances, and observed their behavior. In their eyes, he saw curiosity, recognition, and almost respect. His destination was a massive crater, the epicenter of Varela 9's violent geological activity. The air here was thick with sulfur, acid droplets fell in sheets, and plasma bolts arced unpredictably across jagged peaks. Where others would have perished instantly, John saw opportunity, minerals rich in energy potential, structural fragments, and a vantage point over a dangerous, unclaimed territory. Setting up a forward station in the crater became his next feat. Using the lessons of Haven, he reinforced natural rock formations with scavenged metals, constructed energy collectors to harness the constant plasma activity, and redirected acidic runoff into channels that could both protect his base and generate chemical reactions useful for survival. Every bolt hammered, every panel fused, every cable tensioned was a declaration: he would not just exist here. He would thrive. Back in orbit, Ark and the alien scientists observed with frantic disbelief. Their models could not account for this. "It is beyond all predictive calculations," Ark said, antennae trembling. "It is manipulating its environment, converting threat into resource. It is mastering what should be unconquerable. John never saw the alien fleet, nor did he care. His focus was immediate, tangible, and singular. Survival had taught him strategy, adaptation had honed him into a tactical mind. He monitored storms, timed predator movements, and optimized the layout of both Haven and the forward station. Varela 9 was relentless, but he had learned its language, understood its rhythms, and most importantly, learned to anticipate its strikes. The planet seemed to acknowledge his mastery in small, surreal ways. A storm would pass just enough to allow safe passage, a predator would retreat when cornered but return later, giving him time to refine traps. It was almost as if Varela 9 itself was testing his limits, and he was answering challenge after challenge, never faltering. The turning point came during a tectonic upheaval, a violent series of quakes that shook the cliffs and sent acidic geysers roaring skyward. Haven's primary walls groaned under the pressure, debris clattering across the interior. John sprang into action, coordinating reinforcement beams, diverting runoff channels, and stabilizing energy conduits to prevent total system collapse. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the floor trembled beneath him, but he moved with precision, calm under pressure. Each action saved both the shelter and his life. When the quake subsided, Haven stood intact. He leaned against the reinforced wall, breathing hard, chest heaving, but alive and victorious. The alien scientists were in a frenzy. Their neural arrays buzzed with activity, simulations overloaded, probabilities shattered. It is not adaptation, Ark admitted, voice trembling. It is mastery. No organism should perform at this level. No algorithm can predict it. It is extraordinary. John didn't hear their astonishment. He only felt the quiet satisfaction of survival sharpened into triumph. His forward station hummed with energy, Haven glimmered under the green sky, and small crops in the greenhouse promised sustenance. He had carved a life from the jaws of annihilation, and the harshest planet in known space had not bested him. As he walked along the ridge outside Haven, surveying the storm-lit plains, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The sky churned in green and gold, lightning splitting clouds like jagged swords. Below, the land hissed and spat acid. Yet here he stood, human, alive, thriving. He thought of Earth, the warmth of family, the lessons of endurance, the quiet pride in hard-won accomplishments. All of it had led him here. He realized then that survival was more than instinct. It was adaptation, strategy, observation, and courage. It was the willingness to face impossible odds with relentless determination. On Varela 9, he had learned that life was not merely to be endured, it was to be asserted. And he had asserted it. From orbit, the alien observers continued to record, their collective consciousness stretched to understand what they saw. It is not just alive, Ark said finally, antennae drooping. It is a force. It bends the death world to its will. This species, this human, it is unlike any other. John Mercer did not know he had changed the universe's understanding of possibility. He only knew that he had survived, adapted, and conquered in a place designed to kill without thought. The storms would continue. The predators would return. Varela 9 would never relent. But he had proven one undeniable truth: no matter the hostility of the environment, human ingenuity and determination could endure, even thrive, against impossible odds. The sun, or what passed for a sun through the toxic clouds, rose slowly over the horizon. Acid clouds glimmered in the green light, casting long, eerie shadows across the jagged plains. John stood at the cliff's edge, looking at his shelter, the forward station, and the alien world itself. A faint smile touched his lips. Varela 9 had tested him in every conceivable way. It had sought to destroy him. And yet, here he was. Not just alive. Not just surviving. Mastering. Haven and the forward station were more than structures. They were monuments, proof of resilience, testament to ingenuity, and evidence that even a death world could not erase the human will. John Mercer had not merely survived Varela 9, he had claimed it. And somewhere in the orbit above, alien eyes watched in disbelief, recording the impossible, forever altering their understanding of life, survival, and the stubborn, indomitable force that was humanity. John Mercer turned back toward Haven, ready to face whatever came next. The storms would come, predators would hunt, and the planet would roar. But he had learned a truth deeper than fear: on this world, and in every world, the human spirit could not be extinguished. It endured. It triumphed. It conquered. Varela 9 was no longer a death world. It was a proving ground. And John Mercer had emerged victorious.